by John DeSando. Listen to shows and read reviews online at WCBE.org.
I'm John DeSando.
And I'm Mary Yerina.
And this is It's Movie Time. Mary, the film we're doing today is Corsage. You mean to tell me this is a girly movie?
Well, it's a movie about a girl, but it's not the type of corsage you think it is.
And how do you explain that?
Well, having taken French in school, a corsage to me is a flowery thing that you wear on your wrist or your lapel. However, corsage in German actually means corset. And this is about the Empress Elizabeth of Austria and Queen of Hungary, who becomes empress at a very young age and
16, I think.
16
Oh,
to Franz Joseph, the Emperor of Austria. And you come into this story when she's about 40 years old. And in real life, she was famous for wearing a corset, which the lead actress Vicky Krieps does in this film. In fact, she wanted to the point of her own discomfort.
Yeah, she wore it the whole day.
She would wear it the whole day of the shoot. It took hours to get her laced into it, but she wanted to feel what Elizabeth would have felt. But the corset, the corsage, actually metaphorically represents the confined role that this woman has been forced into due to her gender, due to her position in society, due to her marriage to the emperor, and it's that constantly tightening effect that is strangling her and who she really is.
She's not nice to some of her attendants who don't pull it tight enough.
That is true.
And this is true. This is historically true.
It is historically true. She was known for her great beauty and for her very thin, corseted appearance, which was the look and expectation of beauty at the time.
I remember one of my favorite Australian movies called A Picnic at Hanging Rock, in which one of the images was of the young women at this girls' school and tightening each other's corsets. And as you were talking about metaphorically, it just works perfectly about how they're tightened, imprisoned, and so on by the school, by the expectations of society and all that. In this movie, the director, Marie Kreutzer, does not have any problem repeating that motif.
No, she does not. And I will say, we haven't even talked about the time period, but this takes place in the 19th century. This is the 18th century. I believe we joined her in 1877, 1878.
Yes, exactly.
And this was the expectation, this was the fashion of the time. But I think the interpretation by the director, who also wrote the script, is more mythical, more fantastical than the true Elizabeth. So it is a historically based film, but it's a fictional account, and I think an interpretation of what Marie Kreutzer and Vicky Krieps, the lead actress, who somewhat planted the seed for this movie to be made, of how they imagine this woman who had very modern desires, and I mean modern in our era, and modern values and modern take on life, was really confined into her role in society. And we can only guess that that is truly how she felt, but we do see modern things that I know when I was watching the film, it alludes to the fact that she probably has an eating disorder.
Yes.
Because it's what she can control.
Yes, oh yeah, yeah.
And she also wants to control her image, i.e. being in this corset, and being perceived as being so thin.
Quite an equestrian.
Yes, and a sportswoman.
Yeah, so and they feature that in this film.
Yes.
Which is surely a way of her getting away and getting free, and as you would say, getting control.
Yeah, it was few aspects of her life that she could control. Would be her body, what she took into her body, how she used her body, In all elements of her life, I think we see that portrayed, not only in terms of food and health and exercise, but also sexually.
Yeah, and you bring up an important point, and I say this important because we have a mutual friend who is going to see this movie because of its historical value. And he was surprised when I told him it was fiction. And that because he would come back to me immediately and say, that is not the way she died.
It is not the way she died.
No, it is not.
Nor at the age she died.
No, right. And I had to tell him, this is just it is fiction. It is an interpretation of what they believe to be her spirit, my guess.
Yes, and her sensibilities, and that she felt trapped and wanted to escape. And there's certainly, they borrow from her real life as to how she chose to escape, but they, in the film, certainly take it a step further in terms of her escaping her life in a permanent way.
Yes, although I would have to say, yeah, given the license that they took, I like the ending very much.
I liked it as well, and I have to tell you, it was not the ending I was thinking was going to
Oh,
happen
yes,
as we
yeah.
watched it.
You are going to tell me that either now or later.
I'll tell you now, and you
Yeah.
could edit it out if
Okay.
you want. So when I was watching the film, and certain events are happening, especially with her lady-in-waiting, that led me to believe that she was going to fake her own death with her lady-in-waiting's body,
Oh, not good.
and then she was
Then
going to
she-
go off and
Yeah, I like it.
and lead a life of,
Yes.
that she wanted
Anonymous
to,
life.
an anonymous
Yes,
life.
yeah, that's,
Which it would have been in the spirit
Yeah.
of Elizabeth, because Elizabeth did travel extensively.
yes.
And often traveled incognito or anonymous, and in fact she was traveling anonymously in Geneva, but word got out that she was staying at a hotel, and another royal from another country had left, and an Italian anarchist chose to stab her to death
Yes.
instead of the man who had left.
Yes, yes.
So unfortunately it was a circumstance of, opportunity,
Oh,
and
yeah.
the fact that her anonymity had been blown,
Yeah, right.
that she actually was killed.
And I think she had an affection for Hungary. She spent an awful lot of time in Hungary.
She did, and the Hungarians had a great affection for her.
Yeah.
In fact, when her body, it was confirmed that she was dead and her body was being returned for burial, at first it just said Elizabeth, Emperor of Austria, on her casket, and the Hungarians were outraged
Yes.
and felt that it should include Anne, Queen of Hungary, and
Yes.
it did. But more than that, I mean, Elizabeth was the mythic figure. Had there been social media in the 1800s, she would have been, leading the pack in terms of followers. That's how popular and well known she was, and to the extent that in the 1900s, several movies were made about her, several books were made about her. You can buy every type of touristy tchotchke you can
Yeah,
think
I
of
know,
with
right?
her image on it
And
in Austria. And so it interestingly, according to the director Marie Kreutzer, she wasn't that interested in this topic because she lives in Vienna
You're right,
and
yeah.
had grown up with
Yeah.
all the kitschy touristy
Yeah.
stuff about Elizabeth. But as she did more research and discovered, the interesting aspects of Elizabeth's personality and her life, she decided to make it into a film, but I think a more fictionalized film.
Well, yeah, and I think that there were 3 films that Maria Schneider, I think that's
Romy
Romy Schneider,
yeah.
right, that Romy Schneider had made that were really sugar-coated, from what I understand.
Right, and they're called the CC films
Yes.
because CC was Elizabeth's nickname
Yeah.
for her family.
Yeah,
But so yeah, she was not interested in this topic at all. But Vicky Krieps, who plays Elizabeth, was intrigued by her and encouraged Marie to revisit the topic, and she did.
Yes.
And we are left with this film as a result of those efforts.
yeah, and I thought Creeps was an interesting actress to play the part, notwithstanding her intense interest in it, but because she's not a classic beauty, which I had expected that Sissy was, She's a beautiful woman, but she's the kind of beautiful woman I like, which is not perfect. And so, anyway, yes, I thought as an actress that it perhaps was a real advantage for this film that they didn't just emphasize that beauty. It was clear, and she was attempting to make herself stay young and beautiful, but she was not distractingly beautiful. She just was fascinating looking, and had a certain charisma about her that wasn't just coming from the way she looked.
No, and actually she was kept separate from the cast because they wanted her, the director wanted her to retain her sense of being an empress and not be too familiar with the cast, which is very against Vicky Creeps' personality
Right, yes,
as
you're right.
an actress. But the thing that was very much in her personality was really understanding Elizabeth, what they were trying to convey about Elizabeth feeling trapped as a prisoner
Yes.
in her own life. And there are several scenes that were not scripted that were ended up being left in the film. One of which is...
Well, now, maybe I could interrupt you.
You could.
And Mary, our audience needs to go to our podcast experience, which will be Back Talk, so that they can hear you give these instances, and where we can touch on the subject of feminism in movies. And so for our audience, for our It's Movie Time audience, Mary, what do you suggest?
I suggest that if you like historical drama, this is a very interesting film to see, but be prepared that it is not going to be what you expect.
It's not Marie Antoinette by Sofia Coppola.
No,
It
it's
is
not Spencer.
Right, it's not Spencer, right.
But there are elements of both of those women, I think, portrayed through Elizabeth, and it is worth seeing this film to see Vicky Creeps' performance.
And just be patient with it.